vehicle, you got to be careful that you don't have anything pushing or wearing on the strings. You drive down the freeway and the vibration, constantly vibrating, can cut the Kevlar if you've got it on something sharp. So you just have to be smart when you pack it, when you transport it, that you don't have anything wearing your strings and cutting your strings. If you cut that Kevlar, you basically got to restring the unit unless you tie it off. Tie it off and super glue it, but make sure it doesn't come loose. That's pretty important. Okay, next we get back into our motor. First thing I do is wiggle the prop back and forth. Now there's a whole bunch of things I'm checking with this one. First I start with the frame. I check and make sure that there's no cracks in the frame, so you don't have any, wobbles. If you're pushing it back and forth, if there was any issue with the frame, you could see the stress points. Next, you're looking for your motor mounts, making sure your motor mounts are tight. Those are all secure, so they're not slopping back and forth. If you were missing a nut or something, you would notice it immediately when you shake your prop, because your engine will basically move. So you want to check your motor mounts, and then look at the connections to the motor mounts at the ends, so you make sure that that little steel cup that's glued to the rubber is not coming unglued, which is important. So you check and make sure that your motor mounts are not separating. So you can see them squeezing, but they're not separating. Check the bottoms and make sure that those are solid. Then you check and make sure the engine is mounted perfectly. There's no wobble in the engine because the engine is mounted to the plate. You'll look at the bolts, make sure no bolts are loose, and then there's no slot in your engine. Then you're checking the bearings on your reduction. Notice there's no play in it at all. Once you start getting 300, 400, 500 hours on it, you might start noticing a little bit of play in your bearings. So if you start wearing your bearings, then you can replace just the bearings in the reduction. They last a long dang time. But that's just another thing to check. Then, from there, you're also checking the reduction itself, the pulley, to make sure the pulley is all secure and everything's good and tight. Then you're moving to the prop. You're checking to make sure your prop is tight and that your prop bolts are tight. If those were loose, you would feel the play in the prop and you'd feel the wobble right there. And of course you can look and check and make sure that all your prop bolts are secure. The prop pushes itself on. So I saw a really stupid person once put his bolts in and forget to tighten them, and then went and flew, and like all his bolts were like hanging out, and like several of the bolts fell off and none of the others were tight, and the prop stayed on just fine because the prop is pushing itself on in flight. So even if the bolts weren't there, it's trying to stay on, not trying to come off, which is kind of a cool factor for safety. The German spec. Personally just secure them down. These have never been an issue, so it's not something that I personally worry about. I've never seen them really come loose because the prop is really, it kind of has some squish to it, and so it really keeps it from coming loose. I've never really seen the prop come loose on that one. I've only seen people not put them in and tie it off each spot. Yeah, and don't snap them off. You're putting a stainless nut into an aluminum piece of aluminum, so you don't want to be cranking them off. The other thing is there's also you put not locked tight, but thread anti-seize. Yes, thank you, sir. Anti-seize. You don't want to put a stainless bolt into aluminum with no anti-seize. That's kind of important because they can get dull but we do that right at the factory, so again, you don't have to worry about that. That's all for you. Okay, so now you're checking to make sure your engine is tight. Bingo, bango, boing. You're checking all your bolts. Check your head bolts. Start with your spark plug. Kind of goofy, but the one thing I have seen is sometimes those spark plugs, if you get your engine really hot, if you're running the crap out of it and climbing to 18,000 feet with tandem or something like like that. I've seen a couple of them where the spark plugs have actually started to come loose. So you want to make sure you check your spark plug and make sure it's not wobbling around. That sucker will run like until it falls out. It's pretty amazing that they will keep running. Always when you're flying, always listening to any rattle, pitch, vibration, any change at all. You get a lot from what you hear. If you hear any type of little rattle, vibration, something that doesn't sound right, you want to land, check it out, and figure out what's going on. These guys on the internet are saying, oh yeah, our motor mounts are way better, there's so much less vibration. Watch the video. His engine fell clean off of the Paramotor because of the aftermarket motor mounts. We've been doing this for years. Do not dick around with anything. Don't bad? Change it. What?
Is that bad?
Your engine falling off? Sometimes. Sometimes.
Not if you're an idiot, I guess.
Yeah.
Staying on the throttle cable.
You got it.
What a lost survival.
There's one more.
Send him a Darwin sticker.
Yes. There were 3 different things the guy did. All 3 of them from the US EPA screw-ups that all pretend like they're experts on authorities on everything. Every single thing he did, he found out the hard way, and really hard way, because he lost all his gear was complete write-off. Complete $12,000 paramotor package. He destroyed his wing, he destroyed his motor, he destroyed the frame, the case. It was gone. It was done. He crashed into a mountain, fell 30 feet off of a cliff, and completely shredded his glider, totaled all of his gear, got up, walked away, not a freaking scratch on it. So at least he was in a flat top, and the flat top saved his life. So he came and he bought another flat top from me. And he admitted, yeah, okay, I got the prop. That was the prop. I got the motor mount. There's one more. I'll think of what it was. But whatever he did, it totally screwed him up. So you do not dink around with an aircraft. I mean, it's like in general aviation. You can't change something on the airplane without going through some major steps. If you want to change something, call me, ask me, and I'll tell you and explain the history of why we're doing it. Because a lot of times people change something and they don't realize I've already tried that and know it doesn't work for whatever reason. There's a video out there of this guy saying, oh yeah, there's a way to fix this fuel system, and there's like vibration and you're getting air in it and blah, and he shows how to change the whole fuel system, saying it's an upgrade. Totally screws everybody up. Now, it's like, dude, are you gonna believe the guy who built the freaking motor and flies it every day? Or some Joe Blow who has one unit in his lifetime and now thinks he's an expert on every upgrade? Don't change your motor. Do not change your fuel system. Get exactly the same, and it has to be in the same spot. You do not change where this fuel filter is. If you change it to down here, you jack it up. If you change it, there's a whole bunch of time and effort we have put into this. You don't want to change anything. Don't pick with it. If you need more fuel hose, you buy it from me, you get that fuel hose. We cut it to the exact length, and you do it. So very, very, very important. People literally crash because of something as stupid as they're trying to save a few bucks on whatever, and some yo-ho who doesn't even know how to fly is telling them that they've got an upgrade. Lots of things like that. So, I swear to you, it is not a sales pitch for these things. This is your life. I care about you guys, and I want you guys to be safe. If you've got a question, just ask. If it's better, I'll tell you. If there's something cool, I'll tell you. That's the way it goes. Okay, so, fuel system, gas tank. Check your gas tank, make sure you got no cracks. Make sure your fuel hose is secure, everything looks good. Make sure that this is tight and secure. This is your blow-off valve. You got vibration with a 2-stroke motor, so you just want to keep an eye on things. Make sure nothing's vibrating loose. I have seen a couple of these come off, but again, it's something that happens very, very slowly. It's like people check and it's a little loose and they go fly anyway. And then it goes through their prop and they're like, well, it came off. I'm like, well, it's pre-flight your unit. And post-flight, once you land, check over, make sure it's good. Then the next time you fly, check everything over. As long as you do your pre-flight, it literally takes, not even a minute to go over and just check all the basic things. Next, check your muffler. I like to smack it. See if there's any vibrations, rattles. What's going on? Is there anything loose? There you go.
Sound like it sound different.
See, that bolt is loose.
Yeah, it sound like it different up there. So that means
See, we just found it from knocking on it. Hey Boyd, can you get an Allen wrench right here? Let's tighten that up. See right here, I just found this. So this is just a little bit loose right here. Boom, so we just need to tighten that bolt up. I mean, as simple as just smacking on it a little bit. Just listen for any vibration at all of something that's not tight. You just go over it, check it out. 99% of the stuff, it happens slowly over time. Bolts don't just go and come off. It takes hours and hours and hours, and they start to come loose. It takes hours. So if you just check it, it's not like you go fly 50 hours in one flight. So you check it before and after every flight, and you can catch 99.99% of the stuff if you ever have an issue. And then, even still, again, the cool thing about the aircraft is that the motor only keeps you up. It should never, literally, 20 seconds generally you'll get it going. But make sure it's running nice and clean and smooth all the way through the rev band, all the way to full throttle, right before you launch. And then you should be good to go. And again, don't launch in a manner where if your motor died, you're in real trouble. So you want to launch where if there was a problem, you've got a safe place to glide and land. Always, at every second of every flight, no matter what you're doing or where you're at, you want to make sure you've got a safe place to glide and land to. So it's not a danger. It would only be inconvenient if your motor shuts off and you become a paraglider pilot again. So, but that's the most reliable motor on the market, and from years and years of experience, we've added all sorts of little details and different configurations. This is very different configuration than the stock motor. There's people out there selling the same engine, but it's not the same configuration. It's not the same optimization. It's, you take, you get the dyno time and the tuning. The tuning is everything. It's everything. So the tuning that's been done to this motor makes way more power than the stock motor, and it makes it a lot more efficiently and at a lower RPM, so the motor runs and lasts longer and is more reliable. Lots of little attention to detail on how everything's set up, the fuel system, that makes this way more reliable than just a standard unit.
If at any time, several times when you throttle up with it and she's bogging on you, okay, you wait a little bit, okay, you've got idle, and she's bogging on you again, what would you suspect would be the cause of that? And what would you do?
If the engine's bogging on you, you've got a major issue. Something's wrong. Either the tuning's out of whack or the carburetor's gummed up.
So she's not getting gas, or she's not getting spark?
Yeah, it's either fuel. It's probably not spark, because usually a coil either works or it doesn't.
It's all or nothing.
So it's generally not spark. If it's spark, it's usually just dead. You get nothing. So it's usually just a fuel issue. And if you can't figure it out with tuning, you usually would have to replace the carb and just go with a new one. I don't spend too much effort dicking with the carbs. If a carb's frustrating me and giving me trouble and doesn't work perfectly, I just put a brand new carb on it. It's not worth messing around for me.
How much is that?
I want a brand new. I think carb's like 200, I want to say 265 in there somewhere.
Can you show us briefly how to tune it, if necessary?
And the carb is modified. It's not just the stock carb. It's a Walbro carb, but if you just buy a Walbro carb, it's not the same. There are a ton of little modifications that we do to make it work a lot better and a lot of cool things.
Oh, I was going to say, can you show us how to tune it, if necessary? I mean,
well,
even though
the Ninjas come tuned, so you don't really have to dink with them.
You shouldn't have to monkey with it, yeah. But.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to mess with it. You take it out of the box, you go fly it.
You actually never mess with the air fuel, right? It has a sticker on there.
Correct. Well, that's your high end. So the high end has a sticker right on it. So basically it's telling you we've already tuned it and you don't need to mess with it. The way you would tune it, if you had to tune it though, is you screw your idle set screw all the way in. Idle set screw gets mashed all the way to the stops. Then you basically adjust your idle with the low end, which is a small screw. And so you turn the small screw until you get a nice idle to it, which is what I did over there. Then once you get a nice idle and you get instant engine response, then you would go to full throttle, hold it full throttle, and you turn the high end back and forth and listen for the very highest RPM of the motor. Once you get the very highest RPM of the motor, you would turn it, you would richen it up a little bit to where you don't change the tuning, but you get it on the rich side of running right. And then you're done.
All right.
And that's it. So basically just run it full throttle, turn your high end back and forth, and you'll hear the RPMs kind of go up and down on both sides of the maximum, and then you get it right dead center in the middle full throttle, and then you go a little to the ridge side, and bam, you can.
Rich is better than lean, people. Lean blows stuff up. Fun.
These,
What I mean, I'm turbo.
it's kind of hard to jack up the tuning. If it's running well, it's good. If it's so far out of whack that you would damage the motor, generally it's running like crap. So if it's running like crap, you know there's a major problem. But if it's running good, the odds of you damaging motor, you know, it would be very rare to have it. It doesn't make a big difference. It's not like a little bit of tuning is going to give you so much more power. It doesn't make diddly dang dong for difference. Once you get it tuned where it runs well, until it's not running well, the power is not really going to change, if you see what I'm saying. So little tiny, little fine adjustments don't make diddly dang dong for difference as far as your power goes. Once you get, once you've run it for a while, you can lean it out just a smidge after you get about 15 hours on it, just to get a little more fuel economy, but I wouldn't mess with that. Just leave it.
Unless you buy a crappy motor that only makes half the power, then you want to maximize the